I know that many producers out there are using sample packs nowadays, either from Splice, Loop Masters, there's so many places, even old Akai CDs, you name it. And they're great start-off points for creative stuff. I think a lot of the frustration comes when you start hearing your favorite artist's tracks and they're using similar patterns, but they don't really sound like yours. Now, one of the tricks, if I may call it that a lot of pros use, especially mix engineers and producers that are used to using hardware, is that for 808 kicks, sometimes tuning the kick with an oscillating filter or a harmonic unit like an overstay or saturator or something like that that has a built-in filter really is the game changer for a lot of these beats to really pop. Now, I've been using a lot of plugins in the past, but now I'm using a plugin called Alkane by California Dynamic. And this plugin is incredible because it does what I've always wanted plugins to emulate from my hardware, which is great sounding, tunable filters and just realistic color emulations, not over the top like destroyer machines, but really nice quality, high-end grit, if I may call it that. So I think they've nailed it. And today I'm just going to mess around with a generic 808 loop that I found somewhere. And I'm going to run you through different ways that you can really use Alkane to bring out so much and even glue some of these beats that you might be getting from your sample packs. You'd be surprised. So let's check it out. This is the beat with all the Alkanes bypassed. Here we go. Now I made a couple presets for them, which I'm going to start out with. So I kind of have this as a bus affecting both the hat and the kick and snare. So this is the default setting with a little tweakage of my part. I brought up the color. Now this is using a tape emulation, and the dry wet signal is dialed down. But what I really want to show you is the filters. So let's set it to 0. So when you have that dialed in like that, nothing is happening. But the moment that's a high pass filter. But here's the trick. If you dial up the Q resonance quite a bit to maybe 4, and you start sweeping it, hear that tone. That is very much what you get out of a hardware unit. Now, if you go high, you've got that resonance pitch. But if you go low, hear how that's bringing out the kick of that 808 beautifully. Now, let me take it off. Wow. Instantly, all the punch of the kick kind of flattens out. Hear it again. And you can tune it with your bass too. So it's incredible. Incredibly musical. Amazing. So some of these emulations, this is Tube. Brings a little more grit. Really nice sounding too. Here's Transformer. A little more beef, a little more of that Neve mid-range kind of vibe. And this is one of my favorites, Synth. Now, I pass a lot of beats through analog synth filters to get this. Hear that? Now, if that gets to be too much, you can always dial back the dry wet signal. So here's our original, and here's our synth laden. Now that's just delicious. I mean, then you got a little bit of really nice high end there, and even more kick. We can tone down a little bit of the resonance here. And if you want it to be dark, you've also got a really nice high cut. Now, if I set this back to factory, actually, let's bring in one of mine. This is just a very subtle preset that I made. Let's focus on that hi-hat. Hi-hats are a big problem because a lot of times they need something to help them groove. So I made a preset called Dirty Hi-Hat. Now, what I love about this is that it acts as a glue to the hi-hat. If I bring the kick back in, this is what I do if I pass my hi-hat, say, through one of the Dave Smith inputs, like on the Mofo or the OB6, or even a Moog. I try to get that grit out of the filter. Now listen to that bypassed. It's weak. That just grooves so much better. It's a little too dark, but... So here's just going through a few. I love that synth. I mean, that sounds like you're going through a modular system. Anyway, that's just messing around with a generic loop that I found somewhere. Imagine what you can do with your mixes. Try this plugin out. It is a game changer. There's tons of distortion plugins out there, I know. I've got them all. And I end up using my hardware anyway. But this one really was made with producers that have used a lot of hardware in mind. And what's really good about it is that it really brings out what people spend thousands of dollars buying to get. It's not that it destroys things and makes things over the top. It's how it subtly really glues, which is the word I keep using because it's what I feel this plugin does. It glues and brings out the sizzle and the grit. And that, to me, is what really high-end units are sought for. So take the trial. I think they have a trial on their website, or look into it because this one is really, really special. I love it.